the top of the Empire State Building.
New York. Let's welcome into the studio someone who is family, quite literally. This has been your hometown station. The smile has always been big on your face. Can we give a round of applause for Halsey, please, y'all?
Thanks, guys. It feels good to be back.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
Jersey girl. How are you
Man.
feeling? Where's your heart right now?
I'm feeling great. I'm so excited to be here and to be, on the radio talking about music. And, it's been a couple years, since I've been here, especially in person with you guys,
For sure.
Talking about a record. And it just feels great. I don't know. It gets to be part of the job when you've done it years and years and years in a row. And once you've taken a little break from it, it just gets exciting again. And the way that I feel right now is walking into the building, I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, this is what I'm meant to do, and it's a great feeling.
It's your superpower.
Well, it's 10 years since your debut album.
I hate that so much.
No, why? That's a good thing.
I love it, but at the same time, I feel like people, because I put my first record out 10 years ago, I feel like people age me in their mind, because it's hard for people to understand that I was 19 when I wrote Badlands, so in their mind, they're like, oh, she's been doing this for so long. She's late 30s. And I'm like, whoa.
No, hold on. Pump your brakes, fam.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm still in my 20s for the next couple weeks. And I'm like, I'm just milking it. Every person I talk to, I'm like, well, I'm in my 20s. And they're like, Ash, you're going to be 30 in 3 weeks. So I'm like, I'm in my 20s.
I turned 30 this year, and I'm happy about it. I'm excited about my 30s.
I'm excited too.
Yeah, you are? How are you feeling?
I'm I feel like, I'm excited to start a new decade. And, it's the way that this lined up is so perfect, right? Because I was 19 with Badlands, and then it means that my whole career happened within the decade between 20 and 30 for me so far. And so, we'll get into this more later, but my album, The Great Impersonator, is an exploration of decades. And I, started working with that creative before I had even put that together, that my decade, is my career, it's it's encapsulated in a decade as well, from the moment that I turned 20 until now turning 30. I just can't believe I've been doing anything for a decade.
That's it. I mean, seriously, it is an impressive thing and especially to do something that you love for a decade. That is it's something that's truly remarkable. You get to be here in this space. You get to create this album. Let's go ahead and let's talk about this album. The word fate came up a lot when you were, speaking on what this album means to you. Let's talk about The Great Impersonator and the 25th was right around the corner.
October 25th.
Yeah.
I fate definitely came up a lot. I think fate is something that, in my position, I can't help but think about. Yeah. I'm a girl from Jersey. I grew up in these tiny little apartments my whole life. My parents dropped out of college to have me. I was at their wedding. They got married at Fairleigh Dickinson. What I mean?
Yeah, so weird.
It's just
remember it?
Oh my gosh, no. I was little, but I had I didn't really have that the kind of life where I thought something magnificent was going to happen to me. But at that same time, I did always kind of have this feeling that I was different. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know, it's just I felt different. And for a long time, that feeling of being different wasn't a good feeling.
Yeah.
It was for most of my life growing up, it was a bad feeling. And then at some point that changed, and I started to be well, maybe this is a good thing.
Well, different in one sense, you just felt like you weren't doing enough, or your purpose wasn't getting met at the time.
I don't know. I just felt different than everyone else. I felt different than my friends. I felt different than my family. I looked around Jersey sometimes and was just I don't think I'm supposed to be here. Yeah. And I love Jersey so much, but I just had that feeling of I feel like I'm supposed to go somewhere else or do other things.
Here's what I'm getting from that is that you were calling it Canadian bacon and not Taylor ham.
Well,
that kind of different.
I was definitely calling it Taylor ham. Let's not get it twisted on the air. It is Taylor ham. But no, that's what my soul felt like, for sure. You know, and I I think about Fate a lot just because I didn't know anyone when I started making music. I had no connections in the business. I had
You just did it.
I had
All
really
those
never
days.
really left like Jersey or New York, you know, like, and from the time I wrote Ghost, you know, to the time I signed my record deal was like, I mean, there was like 8 months in between those experiences. So my whole life just changed so fast. And I think about Fate a lot because I think about, you know, it has to be at play in some way because there's no other explanation for how I ended up here. Like, there was legitimately nothing written on the page that
No
would have
playbook.
suggested,
There was no kind of a guidance that you could have followed. No, it was meant to be, and the fact that we get to be here and we get to have these conversations so many years later, which is so powerful and so special, and everything that's going on. And well, we just got the 3 songs so far, but the rest of it, can't wait to know that you're really diving into who Halsey Ashley really is.
You
here,
explain that this is kind of a conceptual concept, like confessional, but you're also in a very gratitude state.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's a lot of things, right? It's funny. I think the album kind of speaks for itself better than I can speak for it, but I'm gonna try anyway. You know, all of my albums are concept albums, and you know, I guess with the exception of Manic, which was pretty like autobiographical, but in a way it was almost like with Manic I was making Ashley like who I really am. That was the concept. It was like, you know, kind of showing people me outside of the performance art of it. I
understand. Yeah.
And then, you know, with my 4th album, If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power, I went heavy concept. You know, I was wearing like a 30-pound Victorian wig and like a Marie Antoinette dress in a castle in Prague, and it was like very extreme, and I loved every second of it. But with this album, I think that a lot changed in my life, and a lot of really positive things, and then a lot of things that weren't so positive. You know, I became a new mom, which was like absolutely life changing.
There's a smile.
I know, I mean, it was completely life changing. And then when my son was a year old, I got really sick.
Yeah.
And I got the kind of sick where it was immediately obvious I couldn't work. But then beyond that, I was waiting on some answers about, you know, kind of what my life was going to look like and how much longer my life was going to look like, you know, and having that kind of experience, I think, provokes existential thought.
Yeah.
I think it starts making you think a lot about your life and like, what have I done, and have I done enough, and is there more I wanted to do, and like, am I living the way that I want to? And, you know, when I started thinking about that from like a career point of view, I was like, you know, if my last album at that point, which was Love and Power, my 4th album, I was like, if this is the last album I ever made, like, would I have felt like I said enough, or I did enough? Like, is that what I would want to be remembered by? Like, have I done enough in my career? Because I think sometimes when you make records, you get ideas and there's things that you want to do, and then you kind of tell yourself sometimes, oh, like, if I don't get around to that, I'll do that on the next one. Yeah. Or like, oh, like, I don't feel brave enough to explore that yet, like maybe I'll do that next time. And you kind of just, you take for granted that you're going to get another album, you know, and you might not, for a lot of reasons. Like, maybe it wouldn't be sickness, maybe it would be something else.
Maybe your career path takes you in a totally different, you might become an interior designer, you know, being randomly because you love it. Yeah,
you can't take anything for granted. And so I thought about that a lot while I was making this record, where I was just like, you know, what do I want to say? And without thinking of like, oh, I'll get to it later.
With that, you know, and one of the things I wrote down here is I wanted to know, like, how freeing was it to create from that space? Was it freeing to just say, like, yes, this is just what I'm going to do because I'm just putting myself into this? How did that feel?
It felt great. All I could think about was just making the music I wanted to make.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that and this is a little heady, so like, you know, and heavy, so bear with me, but like, the idea that I didn't know what those years would look like, you know, following my diagnosis, was actually kind of liberating in a way, because it meant I wasn't thinking about like, okay, like, am I gonna go do promo, am I gonna do a tour, what's the single gonna be, like, you know, I was just like, I need to make an album. You know, because it's just like, the doing promo wasn't promised to me. Doing a tour wasn't promised to me. All that was promised to me was those months I had right in front of me, which was the time I was going to make that record.
Yes.
And I you know, it was also a time where I became super grateful to have music.
Yep.
You know, I like reconnected with it in a real way. I've always loved it, and I do it so like automatically. You know, it's like writing to me is like I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, when people really love what they do, they don't have to like
It's your
tell
muscle
themselves to
memory.
practice.
You're just going.
Yeah, like I just
Heck
go.
yeah.
I just write all the time. But this made me really appreciate it as like a vehicle for, you know, getting to heal and process, and like, you know, I was
saw you
grateful.
on the SheMD podcast, and you were talking about your health and things that women don't really talk about. I feel like sometimes we're scared to share those parts of our lives. How did you feel so empowered to share that with us? Because so many women are having a lot of those health problems, and we don't know because we don't really talk about it so much.
I think that's kind of why, because when it happened to me, I didn't know who to turn to, you know, like much less even in the public space. Like the women in my life weren't even talking about it, you know. And it's like, I feel like with my community, like my village, my friends, like we all are pretty open about the things we go through, because we know that it can help another woman in our group if we talk about it, because then they won't be confused or miss something or like misunderstand something. It's like a mentality I think we really keep, and I've kind of just started applying that to the way that I navigate the world.
Wow.
You know, I've always been pretty honest, like kind of to a flaw, you know. I've been pretty outspoken about, you know, some of the things that I've gone through, whether it's like my mental health, or it's like, you know, experiencing violence in a relationship, or it's like, you know, like reproductive health things that I've been going through, like heavier topics.
And people
you know?
sometimes take it negative or like try
For
to weaponize
sure.
it, but you are just like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do
This is
and
me.
say what I need to say.
Well, I think people think that you're trying to complain sometimes, which is not really, you know, my intention is not to complain. It's more so because I know if one person hears that and it helps them in
It can
some
help.
way, it's
There you go.
worth
You
it,
change
you
it.
know?
Heck yeah.
And I think that when I got sick, I did the opposite thing, where my instinct when I got sick was to hide.
Yeah.
And that was like a moment where I checked in with myself, and I was like, yo, maybe you're not as authentic and honest as you think you are, because you want to go hide in a little hole right now. But then I had to pause. I took that time, you know, to process and like be with my family and everything else. And then when I was ready to again, you know, I was like, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna tell my story just like I always knew I would, and like I always have.
You did it.
You know?
Let's talk music, fool, because
Let's
man,
do it.
Ego is a banger.
Thank you.
You're giving us that energy. Whoever the hell is on the drums, damn it, you picked the right person.
Oh my gosh! You know what? There's
my
a couple.
God.
There's so many great musicians on that song. I started it with Greg Kirsten, who I've written so many amazing songs with. I did "You Should Be Sad" with him.
Sick.
More famously than that, he also did "Hello" with Adele.
Okay,
so he's
damn.
like a
All right.
legend. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? He's like an absolute legend, and he's one of my favorite people to work with because he can play every instrument, you know. So it's like he's not just like sitting there at the laptop. He's just like in the room, like plugging in the gnarliest bass you've ever heard, and you're like, yes, you feel like you're in like Sonic Youth for 5 seconds, and then you remember you're not, and you're Halsey.
Like
but
you're Halsey.
yeah,
You give us some rock energy with it. You give us that pop. You give us that nostalgia.
Yeah,
is
you
is
do.
that indicative of what maybe more is going to be on the album, or is it just really focused on this song of you really peeling back the layers and saying, you know, man, maybe I should kill my ego because it might kill me.
Yeah, you know, that was kind of that was the thing. I wrote that song just really about like I was just like, I don't know. I was thinking about like, because when I first got sick, I didn't want to stop working.
Got it.
You know, and then a lot of people were saying to me, they were like, dude, it's not gonna go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, it might. And then I had to really do some soul searching, you know, to be like, what's important to me? You know, like what's important to me? Because I had just been so career focused for a really long time.
It was a heavy part. We talked about it.
Yeah,
10 years right
yeah.
there of a very formidable part of your life. But yeah.
Totally. You know, I was just like, I set goals when I turned 19.
Yeah.
And then I just kept working towards them for 10 years, but I never really stopped to check in with myself again and be like, do you have the same goals that you had at 19 or at 29? Are your goals different now? And, you know, I feel like I checked in and was like, oh, I've just been working kind of like, not mindlessly, you know, so passionately and so involved.
Like laser visioned on that goal.
Yeah, but laser visioned. And so that's, you know, that's a little bit of kind of what the song is about. Sound wise, like, you know, the rock sound, the album is really diverse because it does explore kind of what Halsey would sound like in the 70s
Yep.
and the 80s.
You gave us that in the teaser of the album,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is so sick, dude.
And this is definitely 90s Halsey for sure.
And then with Eagle, when you hear on the new hit list, when you hear on Z100 on the radio, where you are now, how does that feel to still hear it on the radio?
Okay, well, it feels crazy, first of all, because, like, being at this stage of my career and getting to lead with a song that is so guitar and drum driven,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's just, like, I always love, I love to subvert in, like, a tiny way every time. Like, I always say my songs are kind of like Trojan horses, where, like, they sound like really fun pop songs.
Yeah.
And then, like, either you break them down and it's, like, the
This is a
most
powerful
ridiculous
lyrical song.
lyric you've ever heard that's,
Yeah.
like, soul-crushing, or it's, like, I've done something from a genre perspective that's kind of, I snuck in there, Like, I thought about that a lot with You Should Be Sad, because I was like, okay, we're doing, like, a goth country record, like, but we're going to make it work. It's a pop song, I
We're gonna make it
promise,
work.
Or, like, with Nightmare, you know what I mean? Like, that song goes off like you're at, like, an old punk show when I play that live, and, hearing that song on the radio is crazy. For this one, I love it because, especially with Z100, is just, like, that's the station I grew up listening to.
Yeah.
In the 90s, you know what I mean?
That's what
So,
we
like,
were.
That's what I would have listened to, like,
God,
in the 90s,
you're
early
brilliant.
2000s.
Oh,
so when I hear it on Z100,
Yes.
I'm like a kid, and I'm here. It's, like, weird. It's so meta. It's like I'm a kid hearing myself on the radio, and I'm like,
One
yeah.
favor, please. Next time you are caller 100 for Jingle Ball tickets, don't hang up the phone mistakenly,
Dude.
so we can actually give you the gift.
I can't believe, like how also, like, in the conversation of fate, you know what I mean? Like, how crazy that happened. Like, how many people do you think actually have been a caller and, like, gotten through? Like, not that many.
Not that many, in
Like,
the
for
scheme
all
of
the
things.
people who live in the tri-state
Yeah.
area, like,
Yeah.
the fact that I was, like, a little kid and, like, little did I know that I'd be sitting in here one day. You know what I mean?
It was
just,
What I
Right.
love is that you bring your love of New York back to even when you're acting with your fans. You had a scavenger hunt to find your album cover.
Yeah.
And the New York clue was Electric Lady
Yeah.
Studios.
Yeah.
Why was that so important to you to include?
So I actually recorded a lot of the album there, which is funny because a lot of people don't know that. Usually when I go somewhere, everyone knows I'm in that city,
Yeah.
but I snuck in and I was
Hell
here
yeah.
for, like,
How do you
a
sneak
couple
in?
weeks. I just, like, hid. Because I was also in the studio for, like, I'm not gonna lie, like 15 hours a day. So
Put in that work.
I wasn't getting spotted because
Yeah.
I was never leaving. So there was nowhere to spot me. But I made a lot of the record there, and everyone talks about Electric Lady. It's got just the most amazing heart and atmosphere, and, like, you just make such great music there. But even in Ego itself, I talk about New York. Like, I talk about
Talk
that
about being on the
rooftop,
rooftop.
Lower East Side.
Yeah.
I'm singing.
It's you.
And it's
It is
just,
you.
and that is such, like, a time of my life when I think about being 18. I'm writing Room 93. I don't know I'm about to make Badlands. I don't know I'm about to sign to a big record company. And I'm like,
Tour the
I'm about to
world.
move to LA. My life's going to change. And I'm just, like, on that roof with my friends playing them demos off my phone, just being, like, sick, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, this is sick. And I'm like, cool, that's all I needed. Thank you. Like, I don't even have to put it out. I just wanted
That
you
was
to
it.
think it was cool.
Dude, you're performing without thinking of an ego. You were just being true to you. That heart was full of what was most important to you, and that's what we get, and that's what this friendship is built off of, and that's
And
what
the
it's
fact that
always
you're
been.
part of our iHeartRadio Music Festival in Vegas.
I know. I'm so excited.
We are so excited. We have such a sick lineup. You're right there.
You
on
guys
the
have
top.
the craziest lineup.
Who are you, like, gonna invite to hang out with you in your green room?
Actually, Haley Williams and I were just talking about meeting up because we've been in the same place a bunch of times, and we've both been just so busy. And, like,
Yeah, she was downstairs at Electric Lady while Halsey was upstairs, and they didn't even know it. No, I'm just playing.
Oh my gosh, no, you just scared me because that could happen. Like, that
she was-
literally could have happened.
She was last night at the Paris Hilton nylon party.
I believe that.
Yeah,
I love her so
I know.
much. Yeah, no, I mean, I love Haley. I've loved her forever. I actually talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I met her pretty early on in my career. We played a festival together.
Yeah.
And I talked to her for a little bit, and like, she gave me advice that I didn't understand at the time. And, the advice meant so much to me for a different reason than I think she realizes. Because she said to me, she was like, it's going to get hard. And if you ever need anything, down the line, I'm here. And
Wow.
I know she was being, amazing as Haley is,
Yeah.
like super genuine and incredible. But what that meant to me in that moment is I was like, wow, she thinks I'm going to be around long enough and that I'm going to have the type of problems that I'm going to need her help. Like, I'm going to get big enough that I'm going to have problems you need to
That
call
lit a
Haley
fire
Williams
under your
about.
ass that you
know
knew, like,
what I
I'm gonna
mean?
go. And
Have you
put my
ever? Have
best.
you reached out to her?
We talked recently, yeah. We've been talking a lot, about just how hard it is, I think, sometimes balancing privacy and, like, wanting to just give everything to your fans and to your art. And, like, I'm just so excited to hang out with her. And, I mean, guys, there's incredible artists on this lineup.
Yeah.
I toured with The Weeknd a couple
Yep.
years ago. Abel's, like, an old friend of mine.
friend,
He
yep.
took a chance on me on my first record cycle. And
Did you get a preview of his album?
this new one? No, I haven't yet, but I'm gonna chase him down and ask for one. That's for sure. Yeah.
I can promise you one last thing. We won't hang out in any ball pits at this iHeartRadio Music Festival.
I didn't mind the ball pit.
All right, damn. All right, there.
I didn't mind the ball pit.
Find
Also,
that picture.
this is another. You just determined to make me feel old.
I know, right?
Was that like 8 years ago?
What it might have been, but we were both there together. So
That was like HFK. That was like
That was
Homeless Mountain
HFK.
Kingdom
That was-
era.
yeah.
That was like 2015.
damn.
We're old, dude.
Yeah, we are.
We're
Damn it.
old. I've known you longer than I've known
Damn.
you're gonna meet my son and you're gonna be like, I've known your mom 5 times longer than you've been alive. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
But that's what it's about. It's about history. It's about family. It's about you being you and forever you being you, which is why we are going to be here October 25th to run these numbers up, to watch this album do all the things that it's supposed to do to connect.
You guys are the best.
No, you are, literally. Let's go ahead and let this young woman right here.
Aw, thank
you see,
you.
emphasis on the word young, do that thing. It's Halsey, baby, with Z100.
Thank you
are-
guys.
From the top of the Empire State Building,